Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring you my partner here at Poets of the East, my friend Mircea Duta, international poet and producer, and let him introduce our special guest. Go ahead.
Good evening, or actually good afternoon, according to the time zone where you are, ladies and gentlemen. We are very honored to be again with you within another episode of From Poets of the East, a great project initiated by equally great poet and producer, actually poet of the Three Rivers, and producer and information sculptor Rick Spisak. A wonderful idea which brought a lot of light over artists about which people in America or elsewhere on the globe did not know too many things. Thank you very much for this project, Rick. Thank you for this new initiative in this very beautiful, actually, even if a little bit hot day of Saturday. I don't know what about the USA, but here in Central Europe, it's a really hot day. It's 40 degrees or something. And I have the honor I want to say hello to all our guests, and I have the honor to welcome and to introduce the guest I invited for this edition. We have here one of the most active and dynamic Indian poets and cultural managers. It is a well-known thing that India gives and has given a lot of poets, a lot of literary artists, as they are called today, and that most of them are very enthusiastic and organizing and trying to organize different actions and programs. Some of them are more interesting, some others, well, one could raise questions upon them. Nevertheless, among them, one of the most professional and most balanced from this point of view, it's Kkumar Prasanna, the initiator of the project The Fertile Brains, literary critic, and in the same time, poet. What I can say about his poetical creation, welcome Kkumar, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for letting me. And it's such an honor and such a privilege, to be invited to be gracing your uh, podium. I mean,
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. What I wanted to say, because I would like very much to leave the guest to to present him or herself, especially through his or her work. What I wanted to say is that Kumar's creation, Kumar's work is very interesting as a synthesis of traditional within the tradition. I mean, within the tradition of the Indian subcontinent. And I'm not saying Hindi because Kkumar does not write in Hindi. He's going to explain us which is the language, as in the within the Indian subcontinent, there are a lot of languages. He will explain us which is his language. Nevertheless, he manages a very interesting and attractive synthesis between the traditional way of understanding poetry in within the Indian subcontinent and the modern, the contemporary motifs and symbols. It is well known also that a lot of Indian poets are trying to give up the tradition in favor of those contemporary motifs and to let's say imitate, to borrow European or Western motifs, which not always are fitting the tradition of their country. Kkumar manages to maintain a very solid balance between those two tendencies. And what's even more interesting, he is one of the few performers within the Indian continent subcontinent I know. I mean, besides of writing, besides of organizing cultural programs, Kkumar is also singing, and these songs of his are actually an homage to the classical tradition of the Indian of the culture of the Indian subcontinent. I think that it was enough from the part of a co-host of this program. I think Kkumar could enlighten us more and in a more detailed way concerning his career and his art as I was saying, literary artist and performer. Once again, Kkumar, welcome, and once again, Richard Spisak, thank you very much for inviting and for organizing this episode of Poets of the East.
Well, let me take the honor of thanking Richard Spisak, for arranging this Poets of East, which is bringing together the poets of around the world, and it's something a kind of service. I would say it's introduction to the world poets, and expressing their opinion, expressing their views, expressing their the art and culture, and the exchanging of the views are something something great. And I equally thank Mircea that you're a cultural manager yourself, and you're conducting shows, the poetry, organizing festivals, and all. So as I have my friend Phynne here, Phynne is also is conducting open mics regularly, and also seminars, teaching, the workshops, whatnot. And for me, I mean, when it comes to me, I hail from a commerce background, and I live in the southern part of India, hailing from Andhra Pradesh. I speak Telugu language. My mother tongue is Telugu. But I usually I mean conversant in Hindi and English and so on. So I just try to write in mostly in English, and secondly it comes to Hindi, and later subsequently it comes to Telugu. Uh, it's not I'm very much used to writing in English, and it comes naturally to me. So it occurred to me in 5 years back. It all of it randomly occurred to me to write, to pick up a pen, and it happens. It went along. I went along. So everything gone by
I
as it is.
understand. Tell me, please, how did this idea of the fertile brains occur, and how long did it take you to organize this group and those shows?
Yeah, it's been like it's been like I was there in Google Plus, and initially we started began at on Google Plus platform, where we joined, we got together, and subsequently it happened that it got wind up, and we had to shift to other platforms, and Facebook has happened to come at that moment. And then we thought why not we have a group of our own on WhatsApp. So I try to collect the numbers, I try to gather the poets, and we are like a few friends with me, like a team. So we discussed it together, and subsequently it happened that in 2019, it's almost 2 or 3 years, we formed like the group on Fertile Brains on WhatsApp, but we haven't created anything group or page on Facebook. We just interacted, we just exchanged numbers, and I just keep on inviting and sharing the WhatsApp link, and invited the poets to come and join and share their poems and all. And from last years we began, live virtual things also. So it is something like that, just it went along. And we usually give the prompts thing, and we ask the poets to respond to the prompts, and we use by to encourage. And this is the thing. It's a way of learning, or it's a way of, you understand. So that's the thing.
It's
That's why
such
we can communicate.
it's
Yeah.
such a very successful project. You're really to be congratulated. You bring so many people together. Thank you, brother, for
Thank
the
you.
hard work that you do.
Thank you.
And it is a very interesting thing today that actually we gathered together here, and but I know it was not intentional. It was not something which was done in purpose. But actually, as Phynne Belle is also organizing a very successful program herself, and Amy and Clive are participating actually in all the programs, or almost in all the programs, the ones present here organized. It proves that actually, as Rick has always mentioned, it seems that this pandemic reality created or solidified a community, a world community of poets, which paradoxally, because of the pandemic, or thanks to the pandemic, if you want, they uh, they they were brought together to each other, and I think this is one of the explanations of of the success of Kkumar's project. Kkumar, please, would you like to read us some of your texts, of course, in English, and if you want, maybe one of them also in one of the languages you were mentioning about, in order to hear the musicality of it.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I'm very much comfortable in English here. So it's naturally comes to me, and I'm very much. If you wanted to sing me a song, I could sing a song for you in Hindi. So that would be thing.
It would be great. It would be great. So let's start with poetry, and let's have a song somewhere in the middle.
Sure, sure, sure. So here it is, my first piece, Gaul. It is the imagery is gothic, a little bit, it's something, but then it is. I was left dried. You sucked up juices, scratches I bore. Oozed the bloody tears, sipped forth the sweat of surreal syrup. I left to scream and howl at nights of that daydream. Crawled out, crawled out to quench the thirst, yet I left with no tongue to slurp. Bits and pieces remained to collect the bones to add the flesh. The burial grounds laid bare with no dust to gather. The hearse that carried felt the weight of weightless mass. Enveloped by a blanket of peace, the sheath of sin camouflaged itself as floral offerings. The bestiality of pitbull in the shape of malevolent men. The skies turned crimson. I raised and raised, walked to hound the dirty ogres. I gathered skins of eternity and roaring to shoo away hearts who takes pleasure crushing the fair throats. This piece talks about the one, you know, take the weakness. I mean, it's like who dominate women. I mean, that they kind of rapes and violence against women. That's the thing. That's I try to express in a gothic way. Yeah, that's the poem. That's the end of it.
Impressive, and I have to stress an aspect which actually I knew this poem, and an aspect which impressed me from the very beginning is the correspondence you put between the Gothic as an European motif and those mythological elements from your own country. The correspondence is you find between them. It's really impressive, and I congratulate you for this.
Thank you.
So let's continue.
Okay, you want me to sing a song? Okay, then I would go with a song, I think.
You know,
Because
let's have another one or two texts, and then towards the end of our interval, we will have the song. Okay, I will tell
okay,
you when.
okay, sir. Okay, then I think I could go with uh, uh, li- liberty through words. That is the thing. I write and write to feel the freedom with no rhyme nor the touch of rhythm. Yet my pen lays itself on the parchment, the words flow on the canvas of catchment. I feel the breeze of lightness as the emotion pour out in the poetic fashion, out of sensation, of euphoric impression, feelings of passion and cosmic machination all come in unison. I write to express the latent, stinging pain. I write to soothe the mental tension and strain. I write to swim and wade through the lyrical brine. I write to calm my senses on the wordy terrain. I write and write to feel the freedom. With the pen and paper, I try to suppress the tears of oppressed. In the dome of poetical realm, I try to raise my voice. I write cause it gives me delight of freedom. I take the literary walk and embrace the liberty. That's the end of my poem. So, liberty through words. Thank you.
I thank you very much. It is actually it was a very pertinent observation by Amy, I guess, concerning the rhythm and the rhyme of your poem, which were very peculiar. I mean, from technical point of view, from stylistical point of view, they were perfectly made, but in the same time, they were a little bit strange to the European or Western taste. Tell me, please, were you inspired in this rhythm and rhyme by the traditions of Hindi poetry? Because it was a very strange, almost musical rhythm in this.
No, there is absolutely no inspiration. I would say that I mean it comes naturally and it comes to the in a moment. So when I feel like writing, I write in a particular, not in a particular thing in mind, or I take a particular style or particular the kind of device, classical device or whatever it is. I just write down and it comes out. That is the thing, and there is no inspiration that goes behind it. That is that. Nothing like Hindi or English, whatever it is, like I just write down.
Okay, please let's try to bring an argument for what I wanted to express. And because I was speaking about the musicality of the rhyme and the rhythm you mentioned, please sing the song now, because I think this will prove the connection, the strong connection between the poems you write and the inspiration of your initial culture. Would you like to do this, please? And tell us also what song it is, because I know you have a very strong repertoire, and we are not so much initiated within the Indian music.
Just give me a second, sir. Just give me a second, and let me. I think I have got. Uh,
The idea is, maybe I will, until you manage what you have to manage, I would like to explain our viewers and our guests that music is very important also in performing arts in India, within the Indian subcontinent. I mean, at least classical Indian films had at least 5 or 6 up to 10 melodies within them, and also very impressive and large and complex dancing sequences. So it was a synthesis of arts which is actually unique and specific to this culture.
Yeah, it is integral part of in Indian cinema. In fact, I would say in movies you would find the mandatory songs. I mean, so that is the thing. It is very integrated. So I think I would go with the song now as you requested. This is from a film Prince. It's from it is made in. I mean, it is released in 1969 and sung by the Mohammed Rafi. He's a great singer in India and he's a well-known singer around the world. And the music composed by Shankar Jayakishan. He's a well-known composer. Hazrat Jaipuri. So as he's given lyrics to this song. So बदन पे सितारे लपेटे हुए ओ जाने तमन्ना किधर जा रही हो जरा पास आओ तो चैन आ जाए बदन पे सितारे लपेटे हुए ओ जाने तमन्ना किधर जा रही हो जरा पास आओ तो चैन आ जाए जरा पास आओ तो चैन आ जाए हमें जब न होंगे तो ए दिलरुबा किसे देखकर हाय शर्माओगे न देखोगी फिर तुम कभी आईना हमारे बिना रोज घबराओगे बदन पे सितारे लपेटे हुए ओ जाने तमन्ना किधर जा रही हो हमें जब न होंगे तो ए दिलरुबा किसे देखकर हाय शर्माओगी हाय बनाने संवरने का जब है मजा कोई देखने वाला आशिक तो हो नहीं तो ये जलवे है बुझते दिए कोई मिटाने वाला एक आशिक तो हो बदन पे सितारे लपेटे हुए ओ जाने तमन्ना किधर जा रही हो जरा पास आओ तो चैन आ जाए जरा पास आओ तो चैन आ जाए मोहब्बत की ये है मोहब्बत की ये इंतहा हो गई कि मस्ती में तुमको खुदा कह गया जमाना ये इंसाफ करता रहे बुरा कह गया या भला कह गया ला 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 जरा पास आओ तो चैन आ जाए जरा पास आओ So that's the end of the song. That's,
Kumar, may I ask you?
The protagonist is asking the actor. I mean the heroine. I mean he is after the heroine. This what's the use of the beauty? What's the use of the adoration or whatever So unless you have the friend or boyfriend or whatever he is. So that's the song is about.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rick wanted to ask you something.
I was just going to ask you to explain the song a little bit, but I think you did a fine job. Thank you.
Yes, he just did it. That's right. And someone was writing here. I think Phynne, Belle, or Amy. This is our biosphere. Yes. I felt, even if actually I didn't understand the word from this song, I felt I was belonging to the same biosphere. I felt the cultural signal was very much alike to what we are used to transmit or to receive from other ones. Um, Dear Kumar, I think we still have time for another poem of yours, the one you love the most, so that it would apotheotically end this, I hope, beautiful interval of within this episode of Poets of the East. So please choose one you really love.
I think I let me check, sir. I don't. I love every right of mine, so I think it will not be justifiable if I say I have a particular so I think I could. So this is a piece I written in co-written with carried away Dominsky from US. So this is a collaborate, right? So yesterday storms, the title that goes. I can't say how I feel. I can't say how could I deal. I can't say how I feel. I can't say how could I deal. No matter what I say, no matter what I pray. My reality is real, my sensibility is surreal. It's the ocean that divides, it's the waves that transcends our world waves, our sea of emotions, our swell of passions, our sea of emotions, our swell of passions, big waves drown us, we submerge in the abyss, the small waves push us. We will be washed away to the safety of our shores, unable to gain strength to regain the lost endurance. Nurtured by the sun kiss, fostered by the aurora bliss and moon's effervescent glow, empty spaces become darkness, wide expanse calling for the brightness, no longer aligning the stars meant to shine through the rain, peep through the pain, looking past the path to nowhere, yet moving further to clear the matter, expecting somewhere better, a more favorable destination, amore filled fascination, returning back to the confines, leaving back the sentient terrains of yesterday storms. That's the end of my poem. That's a collaborative effort. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very powerful, very strong, and in the same time, I should say, if at the first poem I remarked the strong influence of the original culture, this one was marked by the strong poem, by the strong influence of the Western culture, even within the rhythm. And I want to congratulate Kumar for being able to manage both of them in such a brilliant way.
Thank you.
Kumar, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us today. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, it was Kumar Prasanna, uh, one of the, I dare affirm, one of the most exquisite poets and cultural managers within the Indian subcontinent. Today, within today's episode of Poets of the East, I would like to thank him for once again for being with us, and I would like to leave the space to leave the floor for the rest of the show for our other three guests, which once again I'm cordially together with Rick welcoming here. Emmy
Thank you for
Hoskins.
having me,
I
sir. Thank you for having me, and thanks for listening. Thank you.
thank you
You're
very
very
much,
welcome.
Kumar.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Emmy Hoskins, Clive Osman, and Phynne Belle Belicios. Thank you very much, Rick. It's yours.
Thank you, sir. So, Finn, why don't you go ahead, come on in? The water's fine. Okay, super. Finn, Belle, how are you, my dear? You look lovely. You must be feeling better.
I am doing very well. These last few days have been wonderful. I think it has been um, really highly due to the weather too. You know, the weather kind of helps with that, and it's been sunny and balmy and just beautiful here.
And where are you on the face of this lovely planet?
I am on the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area.
How nice. How nice. You know, I want to ask you, uh, I think a very important question to all of us writers. You know, some of us write work that is very personal, others address larger societal issues. And I think
Hmm.
whether we do or not, we still have to hold in our hearts a special place for those writers who, I'm going to say, critique society, who offer their insights to it. And I want to mention our friend and brother Salman Rushdie, who is in the hospital now, simply because he had ideas that some people objected to. And I think that those of us who value writing, who value literature, who value our ability to speak plainly and simply our truth. We have to remember him. So I just wanted to mention him briefly. He's very much in my thoughts, and I'm sure in yours as well. Phynne, Belle, let me ask you, dear. You know, some writers start when they're very young, some start in their teenage or school years, some don't start until after college when our lives slow down enough that we can, you know, speak our minds again. When did you start writing?
I feel that, you know, the official answer to that was somewhere in the early 2000s. But when I dig deeper, I think that I had always had this craving to tell a story from just the very beginning of my recollection. I remember when I was a wee little girl, maybe about 5 years old. We were living in Mare Island, um, naval station. My dad was in the Navy. And my sister and I would concoct these fabulous stories. We would put so much thought into costumes and building, you know, tinfoil castles and
Oh,
bringing
nice.
my mom hated this. We would bring her ceramic, figurines into the room to be characters. And, you know, we would build off of universes that already existed, like Wizard of Oz, but we would also create our own. So I think that seed was planted and just planted very deeply within both of us because we both ended up being writers.
Good for you. Good for you. I believe it or not, I was given a tape recorder when I was 8, and I went around and interviewed people. So I started this too early myself. Now, let me ask you about now, in addition to your writing, do you do other art as well? Do you paint or make music or some other art?
I do pen art. Music, I have no aptitude, I'm afraid, for it. I do love to sing. Singing doesn't love me, as is evidenced by the fact that I have a monthly karaoke night, and we all sing our hearts out to our heart's content. We sing really badly. That's the whole point.
Oh, shucks.
But yeah, I do like to doodle. I do like to letter write, which I think is another art. I love the art of the old-fashioned missive that you send to somebody. It's
Sure,
very
sure.
very Griffin and Sabine.
Well, you know, that's such an important point. I'm afraid that the art of letter writing has been lost so much, so badly in our culture.
Mm,
And, you know, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 50 years, those wonderful letters that you and I are able to find when we flip through attics or old boxes and
hmm.
stuff, our great grandkids are never going to see that. And that's a shame for most of us. So good for you. Good for you
True.
putting
Yeah.
pen to paper. I have to admit I love pens myself, and I have always have my favorites around, you know. Okay, so you started performing and writing and acting out plays when you were very young. when did you
Mhm.
really know unquestionably that you were a writer?
It was a little hard
Okay.
because I was seeking this validation, and I know better now, from externally, to to somehow give me a clue, whether from people, other writers, peers, that this is the point. You're a writer, you can officially say that. It didn't arrive by that source, and I just had to somehow summon within myself, um, this voice, this in my inner voice had to conquer itself and say that, hey, nobody is going to tell you this. You're going to have to build from the ground up and put in the work. And just like they say, this may be the most simple advice ever, where they say have a practice of writing daily. Doesn't matter how shite it is. Doesn't matter, like if it's profound or it's touching anybody, as long as you're doing it daily. And when I got into that, and especially at the peak of maybe right before I wrote my book in 2017, I found that doing that attracts more of the like. And I seriously began putting my back into attending, workshops and seminars, really giving an honest look and having other people give an honest look to my writing. And um, I guess when other things, so-called hobbies, fell to the wayside, and this became my primary um, objective or my focus. I knew that just kind of innately, this is the thing that felt the most right. And I think that was the click point right there. That was the point that just clicked and connected with me.
I had the funny experience when I was still a teenager. I knew I had to write. I felt such reverence walking into a library. Felt like
Hmm.
church to me. And I looked, as many of us do. I looked at the bookshelves for what does it tell you about how to be a writer. And I looked at this stuff and it said, find the popular theme and write to that, or write what you know. We
Hmm.
always hear those kind of things. And I thought, the popular themes, the detective story, the murder story, the macabre, and all those. I thought I don't want to write that. That's not what I want to
Yeah.
write. So I thought, well, the hell with that. And so I started submitting. I thought, the other advice you get is submit, 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 right? So
Yeah.
funniest thing happened in my late teens and early 20s. I got accepted by 6 different magazines. But you know what happened? I would send it off, they would accept it, then they'd send me money.
Hmm.
Then I heard we just gone out of business. I actually got paid from 6 different magazines for work of mine, and then they all went out of business. And I thought, okay, well, the hell. Now, okay, so you've discovered you're a serious writer. You're doing the work. You're doing the practice. Um, when when did you feel you had a voice, a theme? You really felt like you got a hold of this thing. What were you writing at that time? Were you writing personal work? Were you writing news work? What kind of writing were you doing?
I so I started. I guess this is not a bad place to start because they do say start from self and move outward. I was holding up just a mirror to myself, and writing a lot of personal things. I think I had to work my way through doing exactly that. And eventually, I wanted to move. I guess that's the natural progression to move forward and see how this connected to other people, and then how this connected to other lives and experiences. And the ripple was ever widening, to the point where it hit across when we went into lockdown. And the pandemic happened, and I was not just meeting people locally um, in the Bay Area, but people across the world and their thoughts and their responses to what's been happening and their responses to a lot of other things that that have been occurring in our lives. And then that's where I found the, I guess you could say, the human connection, that we are all experiencing this together, and we have varied responses, obviously, to it. But that's what I wanted to explore, how they're vastly different, but they're shared. And I think it kind of boomeranged back to self again in some way, because you you hear about these experiences and then you add them to your own. You not compare, but you say, yes, I can truly empathize with this. And it eventually goes back to self. So it's this resounding echo that goes back and forth. Oh my God, my earpiece fell out. And I think it makes this beautiful back and forth dialogue, unintentional dialogue amongst poets and writers and people in general, where they hear this and they connect with that one thing, they empathize. So it has this resounding effect that it doesn't just touch one person, it doesn't just even touch poets. Somebody hears it, and it's almost like the oral tradition of passing this knowledge, passing this wisdom.
Okay, next question I got to ask is, you know, it's one thing to be a writer, to know that you don't have a choice, that you have to write. It's another thing to decide to share, and it's an even more interesting thing when you decide, not only do I want to share, but I want to invite other people together. And I think that's a really generous thing. When did you realize that not only did you want to share, but you wanted to help bring people together? Because you do it marvelously.
Thank you so much. Um, Back like 2010, I started trying to, post in local cafes, um, on, group chat boards online, just anywhere, saying, hey, who wants to start a poetry group? Who wants to, um, to nurture, this art that we all love. And it met to a certain degree of, success. Some people would come in. It wasn't really overwhelming. And I sought to do that. And it was just always in the back of my mind. When the pandemic hit, it recurred to my mind. I was like, oh, wouldn't this be a great way to bring everybody together, to do something that's meaningful? And I just kind of threw that out into the ether. Um, and my intention was really simple, just to do an online version of what I had intended, pre-pandemic. And oh my goodness, it flourished into something more. And I know this is reflected with a lot of people, but for me as well, I found spaces and places that were truly life saving. I wouldn't have made it through this period without the company and understanding and affinity that I felt, and such compassion. We as creative beings are so compassionate, but we sometimes have no place to show it, or people who understand how we're showing it. And so I found that having this space and expanding this space for everybody to come to, um, has has been a haven. It's been a haven, and I just want to continue doing it, if for nothing else, for that purpose, for people to come in. I even encourage people to come and listen. They don't have to share. Just being surrounded by poetry, being surrounded by music and the arts, is this very reassuring embrace.
You
It
know,
is.
we move around in this space that is so confined to commercial hyper simplicity. to commercial values. And one of the things that I enjoy so much about our poetry gatherings online is that you hear the song of poets' hearts that has nothing to do with commerce. It has everything to do with beauty and everything to do with truth and everything to do with caring. And it's so exquisite, you know? And I find myself having been both working in commercial television and doing guerrilla television, I enjoy these Zoom spaces and these marvelous, rich-hearted beings that we meet. It's really a marvelous, a side benefit of the terrible COVID experience, you know. Okay, I'm going to compliment you one more time. I've seen some of the events that you've hosted. You're a really genial host. You really care and nurture, you know, voices, especially, you know, the tentative voice, the person who's not quite sure they can, you know, do this. What do you tell the young poet, the beginning poet who's coming on? What do you say to them? Why, in your words, why is poetry important? Why is it valuable?
This is going to sound really trite, but poetry is life. It's just life. We are the, we are the scribes. We are the observers. And but not only the observers, we are also the people who experience it, and we experience it so deeply. Um, if a young person were to have a quiet moment, you know, and feel, you know, is this something that speaks to every fiber of their being? Do they feel it? Is there a pulse that they feel every day they wake up to? I have a a friend um, who's in this local global poetry community, Elemental, the poet, and he said, you know, you're not just waking up and eating, sleeping, shitting poetry, you know. Um, then you know then what's going on with you, and I always think about that. That is exactly, that's exactly how I feel. I know it seems intense, and again, you know, harkening back to your question a while ago, you know, when did I feel that I was serious about it? um it's honestly, this might seem a little scary, it's the first thing I think about in the morning, the last thing I go to bed with.
How
You know, it's a
wonderful.
lover.
How
It's a
wonderful.
lover.
Well, thank you so much. You know, poets rarely deal with the trite, they deal with the most important issues in their lives, in their community. And that beauty, I think, is just so nourishing to the soul. Okay, we've talked about you. How about hearing some of the wonderful art of my friend Phynne Belle? Phynne, would you read us some of your work?
I would be so pleased to. Thank you. So I wanted to begin by offering something of what I like to call a palate cleanser, which is a short poem. And this this is brand spanking new. I came up with this in a workshop by the wonderful Emily Cordes. She held a workshop for me. I have a workshop called Poetry Games, and she was the latest presenter. And she did the mystery of the tarot. And so this is a poem that I came up with. Um, this is a poem on the minor arcana. So it's called Sword, Pentacle, Wand, Cup. Mother of enlightenment, I call upon you, breathe wind into notion, make me lungs of burgeoning concept. Mother of cunning, I call upon you, nestle me safe. I simmer inside your womb, I am formed from the new root. Mother of ecstasy, I call upon you, rouse up tongues of flame, resuscitate me, I am reborn. Mother of nourishment, I call upon you, summon all seeing eyes, watch over us, cleanse and feed, banish our hungry realm.
Wonderful, wonderful, really nice. I
Very powerful.
I want to see that when you get a chance. I'd like to read that one. That's really nice.
Wonderful.
sometime other than on
Absolutely.
this show, I want to tell you a story about Tarot, but that's another time. How about
Okay.
another, my dear?
Look forward to it. Yeah. Okay, so I believe that the alchemy, of the seduction that occurs when two souls begin their move towards each other, that it's really magnetizing, and it's casting a spell. I love spell casting, just this idea of magic.
Oh
Um,
yes.
yes, yes, very much, a spell binding all on its own.
Hmm.
So this poem is something of that sort. It's called Sirena, Sor Juana, Sirena being mermaid in Tagalog, and Sor Juana is sorceress.
Okay.
A last swig of dark brew, his worries abandon his brow for the night. His 5 o'clock shadow is impatient for tomorrow. He bids me good night, and lights go out all over the world. I temper my aqueous turbulence. I chew on hard time, leftovers my mind clutters, thicken leftovers to chew. No, nah, really. Lines and meanings and pauses and breaths. I have ample time left on my plate. Lust is not a condiment. Love is not a meal. It is binge eating madness. If left entirely to my whimsy, a former self would emerge from the hardwood floors and climb into the attic, throwing down old vices on the landing to play heartbreak with later. I braid him. Into my life, careful plates, I intone good intentions. I bind him into my anima, twine tightening. I breathe out my longing. There is no longer day or night. I want to strangle him in the sunlight fragrance of my hair. I want to initiate him into the intimacy of how my dreams make me languish in the tangled sheets between my legs. I want to make erratic patterns of sleep, lightning movements trip behind my eyelids. I want to compel him to gasp, to convulse, and pine in the same seductive rhythm. I bide my time, siren song silenced. I bid him good night, and lights go out all over the world. My limbs cross, uncross, impatient for tomorrow, but my brow is unruffled tonight. A last stir of dark brew.
Wow. Wow. That,
Even my
my
dogs
dear.
agree.
Oh, yes. The dog thought that was some pretty darn good stuff. I don't blame him. I did too. You are obviously a woman of power. A lovely, lovely piece. I've never heard a spell delivered quite so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to tell you this. I taught meditation for a while and related matters. One of my students said, "Oh, Rick, listen, you've got to tell me, what spell can I use to bind this guy? I want this guy to marry me." And I said, "Oh my God, no. Oh my dear, you've not been listening. You don't want to tie someone to you because you'll be tied. It'll work, but in
Me
the
for
worst way.
father.
Don't do that." She said, yeah. I said, listen, I'm going to tell you a way to do that simply because you can find it anywhere. But I want to urge you, please don't do this to yourself as well as to the
Mm-hmm.
gentleman. So I don't hear from her. And then
Mm-hmm.
I hear, oh, come to the wedding. And I said, oh my gosh. And there at the wedding, she said, I can't believe I did this. Oh my God, this was such a mistake. I said, well, that
Yes.
really took a long time to realize. But enough of that. I want to hear more of the magic that is Phynne Belle.
It just made me think, to piggyback off that, and do no harm, do what you will. The whole, Wiccan read about,
Yes,
no
ma'am.
harm.
Do
So it's
what thou
like,
wilt. Ab-
threefold. Yeah.
absolutely. May we have another, my dear?
Yes, I would love to. So this is another little teeny tiny. I know you'd like that term, palate cleanser. So this is a tiny love song to two mothers. It's called Dikya. Dikya is Tagalog for or Filipino for jellyfish. I love sea creatures. Dikya. Mama, do you see me waving? Do you see my face shining, bobbing sa ibabaw ng dagat? I sink my toes into the sand. The jellyfish, ang mga dikya, tickle my calves. I sink down to where the curve of your belly rumbles
You weave a powerful spell, my dear.
so much.
Beautiful.
Oh goodness!
Beautiful.
I think the bark means yes, and one bark means like don't like it, wasn't into
Well,
it. So,
you certainly have him also in your spell. Please, another, my
I
dear.
hope so. Okay. Um, next one's called Desert Horses. Um, I like to think that I now see my childhood blissfully through this gauzy lens. And I'm really thankful for that because um, my my otherness, being this poetry odd bird, it always lingered around the edges of my consciousness, and that just made me stand out more, being a Southeast Asian American child in the deep South. So luckily, I was shielded from that. My parents were very aware of the injustices and the hate and the racism, but they were able to shield us from this because they were always this fierce maharlika. They were warriors. And so that's something that nobody could ever take away. So this is called Desert Horses. This is an experience from my childhood. The Red Rock Formation, a faulty television set. Sand becomes fire, not earth. Our family did not go on road trips. Vacations arrived sparse and earnest, filling our hungry youth with their stale order, prepackaged in amusement park delusions that children cling onto, never satisfied, always seeking. A precursor to prepare for a middle class life. This trip was no different. Mama said we were moving to California. My sister and I took turns sprawling on the fragrant maroon leather seats of our daddy's robin eggshell blue skylark, cradling the styrofoam icebox between us, feeling like skylarks ourselves, the whole expanse of sky above us ours and no one else's. If we tilted our heads slightly, we could play spatial games with the light on the old coop's ceiling, fading, igniting, creating prisms with their own secrets to keep. If we tilted our head just a little more, Spotty nodded sagely at us, unfailingly, rhythm from his perch on the rear deck. The sun leads the way. We are all moving westward. No soup, we eat flame. Our parents did not know long car trip games. They did not trust roadside attractions. What they did know were children's bellies, how to pack staples like collapsible cups for Coca-Cola, and cold fried chicken neatly folded into aluminum foil for brief pauses, for necessary picnics at rest stops where folks in the South probably still stared at folks who were tiny and brown, where folks pointed more west probably still let their eyes linger too long on my sturdy upright wisp of a father, or my mother's pleasing soft moon face, or on beautiful young girls with smoky tumbles of unkempt black hair and kalumpit black eyes, imagining illicit invitations in the margins of hot days unsent. Near these rest stops were young men with midnight dark hair to rival our own, spirits ablaze just beneath the careful polite shutters protecting the spirits still dancing centuries later in their eyes. Upon their makeshift table were horses thundering across a burlap desert, wood holding the sun's own sacred hearth as they danced among their brothers wild. Their marble kin were stalwart, gray ice and almost mute, guardians of wisdom found among stories passed on from mother's teat into daughter's attentive mouth. the most delicate of the marble fillies, compelled my hand to lift her from her stately gait on her foremothers' and forefathers' land. Upon her flank was a single bright sienna flash, only visible if you turned her just right in the fading light. My horse carried her people's undying spark, all their courage and lessons present still. Mustang fly by going home. They slow greet ancestors in the sky, the heavens ardent with fire.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Just exquisite. Mircea, would you like to ask this fine young lady a brief question?
Well, I have to admit, Rick, that your questions were so rich and so detailed that it would be hard to add something in as matter of question. But if you allow me, I would like very much to make a short comment on her very strong style, which connects tradition, religion, a certain intellectual interior rhythm, and in the same time the traditions where of the culture she belongs to, and all this within a very strong and powerful synthesis, an impressive one, and that actually I remark here two tendencies. One of them is to concentrate very much the image, to put there so many things which are in a very delicate but convincing balance, and another one to flourish, to make strong and rich metaphors which impress by their amplitude and their richness. Try to say, hard to say what is better. Nevertheless, very impressive, and a creation, a work that worth writing and reading and learning from it. Way to go, Phynne, Belle, Belicious. Thank you very much for being here with
Thank
us,
you. That's
Poets of the East.
Thank you
that
so
is
much,
the
Phynne.
best feedback I've ever received on that poem. It's just fulfilling, just as fulfilling as reading it. Thank you.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us. We're going to want to have you back again. Thanks again, Phynne. Beautiful. Really beautiful.